Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here this evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the first of three public visioning sessions that we're going to be having pertaining to the Parker Middle School project. I appreciate very much everyone coming out tonight. Parker Middle School had an event tonight as well, so I know there's going to be some additional people joining us. The event was ending over there at 7, so some other people will be coming in as the night goes on, but we are going to kick it off to be respectful of folks' time. What I'm going to do is share, so for those who don't know, my name is Jay Lang. I'm the superintendent of schools. Chelmsford TeleMedia has been nice enough to record this for us. So we're going to be able to post this video up to the website for individuals who couldn't join us tonight. Anyone from the public who would like to get an update on the project, to be able to see what we're talking about, they will be able to do that for us, which I think will be great to provide that context for the future for individuals that want to take a look at the project. A few other folks in the room tonight that have been very instrumental in kind of getting us to this point. Just Paul Cohen in the back is our town manager. Paul's been excellent to work with on this. I want to recognize Paul. We have a school building committee that's been meeting now for several months, and we have several of our members that have been here to join us. I'm on the committee with Paul, Tim Powderly, Brendan Kelly, Brian Curley, Jim Clancy, Dennis King. All serve to get updates. We meet monthly at the school admin offices. Those meetings are recorded as well, and they're all listed right up on the Chelmsford Public Schools website under the Parker Project, so you're able to go and watch those. We have school committee members here tonight, Dennis, who I mentioned, who's on the building committee, Maria Santos, Susan, and Diana LeBeau. Susan McKinnon, I'm sorry, and I got your last name too, Susan, sorry about that. And Diana LeBeau are here tonight from the school committee. So as we shift into this, what I'm going to provide is just a little bit of historical context of kind of what got us here tonight, and then I'm going to introduce in a few minutes our project manager and our design firm. But this project actually started back in 2016, if you believe it, almost 10 years ago. The district undertook a process to develop a short-term and a long-term capital project. We had a firm come in and work with us to put together a comprehensive facility assessment to kind of chart the future for town. Early on after that project, one of the things we actually decided to attempt was, if you recall, because I know a lot of people in this room are part of this, was a high school project. So back in 2018, we actually had determined that perhaps as a community, we should build a new high school. And if we were able to build a new high school, then Parker and McCarthy students might be able to move over to the current high school, which is actually our newest building in town. Chelmsford High School came online in '74, so it's just over 50 years old. Our thought process at the time was our high school kids would benefit from a brand new high school. Our middle school kids would benefit from a new school as well, the newest school in town, and that would give us a little bit of time to work with our elementary school students on finding a long-term solution for elementary enrollment. We tried for 3 different years to advance that application with the state, and the feedback we got from the state was that it was a very good, sound application. However, at the time, every year you apply to the MSBA for funding consideration, they take a look at the schools that actually applied that year, and that's who you're competing against. And because high schools are so expensive to build, the state can only really partner with 1 or 2 communities a year for a high school. They can obviously partner with more communities for middle school and many more communities for an elementary school. We still tried for a couple of years to advance that project, and after the 3rd year, we talked to them and said, you know, if we keep doing this, what is the likelihood that we're going to get traction on this? And they said, honestly, it's nothing to do with your application. It's just the schools that you're competing against are in far worse shape than your school. Your schools are very well maintained, and I honestly have to credit the town for that. The schools we have are old, but they are very well maintained. They said you can keep applying, but you're basically at a competitive disadvantage because of the age of the building and also the condition of the building. So at that point, we actually re-engaged the consultants to come back in and work with us to figure out if we weren't going to do a high school project, what potentially could be the next biggest project that we undertook as a community to, in one project, accomplish the very most that we possibly could. We obviously know that funding is an issue for projects. Building a school project is expensive. All of our building stock are 50 to 70 years old, so we're going to have to do multiple projects, but we wanted to try to do the most in one project that we possibly could to then allow the town to have a little bit of a break, kind of figure out what the next project should be, and ultimately over the next 25, 50 years start to sequence some of these school projects. So after we had the group come back in, we actually said we think a middle school project would be the way to go, that might be the project that could get traction in town and get support. Ultimately, we do need the support of the community with this school, but it would also help with our elementary and potentially our middle school enrollment needs. So we took a look at Parker and McCarthy middle schools at the time, and for years there had actually been some discussion about some efficiencies in perhaps running a separate 5-6 school and a separate 7-8 school, as opposed to two 5 to 8 buildings. We retook a look at that study, and a lot of the data actually really supported efficiencies and more equitable programming by doing that, and actually making one school a 5-6 and the other school a 7-8. At the same time, also looking toward the long-term project. Ultimately, this is going to need a town override to support the project, and we didn't want to be in a situation where one half of the community would be benefiting from a new middle school and the other half of the community wouldn't. That would obviously be very difficult for us to get support. Never mind, as soon as you get done building that first school, there'd be a push to build the second school immediately. So as a district, this is 3 years ago, we decided to make and realign Parker Middle School to serve all students in the district in grades 5 and 6, and then all students in the district over at McCarthy 7-8. And that, when it comes now to this project, kind of takes that argument off the table over who will benefit from this school, because any student in town who ultimately goes to this new school is going to benefit. So this is going to be a project that benefits the whole town. We ended up submitting an application in 2023. That's when we shifted gears to apply for the Parker Middle School project. And a year later, we're notified that we did get accepted into the MSBA's pipeline for funding consideration. And then really over the last year and a half, things have been happening quite quickly. Again, MSBA in 2024 invited us into the feasibility study for the Parker School. We completed all the various modules. This past December, we were invited into the next phase of the project with the MSBA, and that's where the work really begins. So that was a little bit of our shift, and I think for individuals who may have been part of some of the original conversations around the high school project, hopefully that context helps a little bit. One of the things that we're going to do tonight in working with our OPM, Leftfield, and our designer AI3 is talk a little bit about the options that we're going to be exploring. So I'm not going to go into those to kind of steal their thunder. So we're going to allow them to present on that. But when we were going through this process with the MSBA for our statement of interest, we did ultimately have to make a decision about Parker or McCarthy Middle School and which school we would advance and why. Ultimately, we decided we can make a more compelling argument with the MSBA about a need for a new Parker school than a McCarthy school. If you think about it, the McCarthy school used to obviously be the high school at one point in time. The rooms are actually more conducive size-wise for programming. So if one school had to stay on after the fact, we took that into consideration. McCarthy is just a little bit more workable size-wise. McCarthy offers several advantages that a new school wouldn't offer for that age group. The auditorium was refurbished and in very good shape. We have a very large gymnasium. Sometimes those aren't always qualified for in MSBA funding. We have the second smaller gymnasium at the school. So there were just several reasons why McCarthy made sense to keep online. And Parker operationally has some deficiencies. It's an older building. The site is a little bit constrained because you actually, ironically, you have a little bit of a river running right underneath the school. Again, ADA was an issue. The footprint of McCarthy School is a little funky when you're actually in the building. A lot of the classrooms actually are joined together. You have to walk through one classroom to get to another classroom. And for this myriad of reasons, we ultimately said we thought we could make the more compelling argument with Parker. Again, also keeping in mind at the end of an MSBA project, if we do build a new middle school, a school has to come offline. So we said, you know what, we'd rather have Parker come offline as opposed to McCarthy. We'd want to keep McCarthy under either scenario. So, so these are the elements, and again, we're going to get into them a little bit later on tonight about why we made that choice. But it comes into play when we actually do start to talk about the options that are in front of us. So we've got 3 great options to look at, and we're going to be looking at them between now and really the holidays. And our OPM and our designer are going to walk us through that. So the town of Chelmsford, in partnership with the school committee last spring, went through a request for proposals process to bring a firm on board to serve as our owner's project manager. This is our day-to-day individuals kind of in the field helping to make the decisions with us, the schools in the town for this project. We're very happy to have Leftfield come on board. Hamdi and David, who will introduce themselves a little bit later from Leftfield, are really kind of eyes and ears in this whole process, helping shepherd the towns and the schools through it. More recently, toward the end of the summer, we then had to take the next phase. We issued another request for proposals because we have to hire an architect or a design firm to help us with this particular project. And at the conclusion of that process, again, very happy to have AI3 architects on board, Troy and Julie will introduce themselves a little bit later and guide some of the work that's occurring tonight. So briefly, again, I just want to thank everyone for coming tonight. This is being taped, so when we're conversing and whatnot, we're going to capture some of that so that we can share it with the community. But I appreciate everyone coming out to get this first step in the process. And I will turn it over to David.
So my name is David Sandin, Leftfield, owner's project manager. And I'm going to pass the mic around for the introductions.
Hi, my name is Hamdi, Leftfield, owner's project manager.
Troy Randall, partner, AI3 Architects.
I'm Troy Dyer, project architect at AI3 Architects.
And I'm Julie Rivera. I'm a senior associate at AI3 Architects.
Just one more, just want to recognize Ashley Cullion as a principal Traverse Landscape Architects as well.
Thank you, Troy. All right, so what we have here is we have basically a flow chart with the MSBA process. The MSBA has 8 different modules. Actually, there's 9, but the 9th one is not shown here, and I don't want to say it doesn't count, but the 8 are really important for tonight. As Dr. Lang walked everyone through, there was a road work that was done ahead of time, almost as a catalyst to where we are. Statement of interest was issued, and I have some data points here. In 2023, when Chelmsford issued the statement of interest, there was 63 that were sent to the MSBA from 52 districts. Only 19 were accepted by the MSBA, so an acceptance rate of about 30%. The following year, in 2024, there were 119 SOIs from 69 districts, and only 22 were accepted, so an 18% acceptance rate. And that backs up what Dr. Lang indicated about they could have been 2 high schools or a high school that was invited in. So from year to year, there's different dynamics that happens with the acceptance of schools into the pipeline. But I always say that if a district gets invited in, that district has won the lottery to get invited in, because there are some districts that have been submitting for 8 years and they have not been accepted in. So during the eligibility period, we're through with that in 2024. As Jay indicated, the project team has been formed, and we are in the early stage of the feasibility study. We will go through an extremely robust schematic design. AI3 will walk you through the early steps of educational programming and what is happening. At the conclusion of the schematic design, we will know what the preferred option is, what the schedule is, what the budget is, the reimbursement, the tax rate. We're going to know everything. And at that time, there is funding the project. And then once the project hopefully is funded and secured, then the rest of the project will continue on. Next slide. Next slide. So as a question, where does the grant money come from? Well, it comes from taxes that are paid by everyone within the Commonwealth, Chelmsford residents. And the best way to explain this is that for every $1 of tax or sales tax that you pay, a penny goes to the MSBA. And think of it as it's basically a savings account that the MSBA collects and then distributes to various districts based on if the district or their school is accepted in. Has this been provided to other communities? Yes. The MSBA has been doing this since 2005, 20 years. And then what are the initial requirements to receive the grant? Well, obviously, we've gone through everything. We've been through the eligibility period, and we're starting the feasibility study. When we refer to the feasibility study, it's actually a feasibility and schematic study. And the goal is to deliver the most fiscally responsible and educationally appropriate solution for the long term. And what is the impact to my taxes? We don't know yet. But at some point, once a preferred solution is defined, a schedule, estimating costs, a total project budget, there will be a tax calculator that will be provided on a website. We do have a project website that I'm sure that there's a QR code that is part of this presentation. If there's any questions regarding what my taxes may be, we are extremely far away from landing on that at this time.
Excuse me, I'm wondering if, I know the answer to this, but I don't know if everybody necessarily knows what it means to be in the MSBA pipeline. Could you just explain what that means for our town, sort of what are the advantages of being part of this MSBA process, why we sought it so much?
Sure. We'll stick together. Okay. So again, just being accepted into the MSBA pipeline, the district should feel extremely lucky because the MSBA is going to participate in reimbursement and participate in the funding of the project. The reimbursement rate at this time, the base reimbursement rate for Chelmsford is 52%. As we go through the process, there will be anywhere from 4 to 6 additional reimbursement points. So 52 will grow. However, the key takeaway that I want everyone to hear tonight, it's not 52% of the total project cost. It is 52% of eligible costs. Not all costs are eligible. So please do not go on social media and say, the state's paying for half the project.
But it is still a huge advantage to have that.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the metrics, there's hundreds of SOIs that are submitted in a couple-year span, and they don't all get accepted. So, a gentleman had a question.
An example of what is not eligible expense, but usually nominal expense associated with this subject.
Sure. An easy one, if there is a phased construction solution, temporary classrooms might be a requirement to complete the project, but temporary classrooms are ineligible.
So just a little bit about us, the designers, AI3. We started, myself and a few partners started AI3 about 26 years ago with 100% focus on educational design, designing for enhanced learning, focused on research, development, assessment, and designing schools. That's it. That's all we do. We've designed over those 26 years 28 middle schools in the Commonwealth, in New England, and one as far away as Seoul, Korea for the U.S. government. We've worked with over 45 districts in the Commonwealth, as well as 110 plus projects spanning from K to 12, pre-K to 12. And as I said, that was a quick snapshot of us by the numbers. So a little bit about the schedule. Both Dr. Lang and David spoke a little bit about the modules. And this is you'll see this as we meet within the next several months and as we move through the project. Where we are in the project today, very early in the process, we're in the investigative phase, the preliminary design program, part of the Module 3. That will continue until the end of January, where we submit to the MSBA, the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the first phase, the PDP phase, and all the documentation required as part of their prescriptive program. The next phase will be the PSR, Preferred Schematic Report. That will continue until the end of April, when we will submit that documentation. And that will have its own set of requirements related to their prescriptive method and their very strict requirements. When we move to Module 4, that's when, as David mentioned, there'll be a single project identified. That project will continue through schematic design to the end of October. And in preparation for the MSBA's Board of Directors meeting in the fall of next year, in anticipation of town meeting and a debt exclusion vote at the beginning of 2027. To be determined exactly what the dates those will be. So if we look a little bit deeper into what makes up each of those phases, the first phase, which we are in right now, submission on January 22nd, this includes educational visioning programming that has all of the stakeholders involved related to the educational leadership team, students, faculty, staff, parents, some community members that we're conducting right now. It will move into an educational program, which is the nuts and bolts of a project, the size of the building, or the size of the spaces, the specific spaces that make up an entire building. So that will occur in the next month to month and a half. Evaluations of existing conditions, the existing building, the existing site, that's ongoing right now. And then grade reconfiguration. That will be something that we'll talk a little bit further in the presentation, but that will be a discussion over the next 3 months as we work through the first phase. The second phase, Preferred Schematic Report, that gets deeper into the evaluation of various options. What does the building look like? How is it configured on each of the sites? What ultimately will be the preferred solution that is taken into schematic design? Continued evaluation and deeper evaluation of the existing conditions, the building and the site. We'll go through ad rental options, new construction options, and then we'll also identify preliminary cost projections. The schematic design submission and process, the Module 4, that continues through the design of the specific option. More detailed plans, more detailed elevations, and the aesthetics of the building, and how that entire building and site starts to develop from a design standpoint.
Apologies, because I'm going to hit you with a pop quiz right now. So, does anybody know what modern codes or regulations were in place at the time that Parker Middle School was constructed? And just as a little hint, completed in 1967, if that gets anybody any closer. No? Nobody? Okay, that's why you have us. We're building science nerds. We know this information for you. We're going to see a timeline of the modern codes and regulations that have been put in place since Parker was constructed. So these kind of all follow along the lines of making sure that our buildings are actually accessible for everybody, whether that be somebody in a wheelchair or with vision impairments or other mobility issues. Also making sure that all of our buildings are being constructed in the same way, they're all equally safe. And more recently, focusing on making sure that our buildings are not using too much energy as well. And those codes, like I said, have been coming up much more recently, especially the Energy Stretch Code, which is continuously updated ever since 2010. So recently the design team took a tour at the Parker Middle School, and like Dr. Lang mentioned, we did notice that the facilities department does a great job of maintaining your buildings, but they are still showing their age, especially when it comes to accessibility, as you can see here. For example, we didn't see very many sinks that would be accessible with knee clearances for a person that might be in a wheelchair. Similarly, some of the doors are in deep recesses, so they'd be difficult to access, as well as a lot of paths of egress that involve taking the stairs up or down the building, which would be impossible for a person in a wheelchair, as an example. Additional non-compliance issues that we noticed are specific to the general building code. So that means some stairs that have railings that are horizontal rather than vertical, so could possibly allow students to climb up or down them. There are some ramps that don't have handrails, which are also not ideal, and some expansion joints that are not continuous, which is going to cause cracking in the walls and in the finishes of the building. So in addition, further energy codes issues that we have seen here as well. While the building was really progressively designed, especially the exterior envelope at the time, it really does not hold up to current codes. For example, some of the silicone joints in the exterior of the building have deteriorated, allowing moisture to get into the exterior of the building, and there are no weep holes at the bottom to allow that moisture to get out of the building. A few other just general design issues that we saw in the building include some columns and conduits that are in the middle of a classroom, which are obviously not ideal, especially for flexibility of the classroom spaces, as well as generally just some finish cracking and a lack of natural daylight throughout the building. So after our tour of the building, we then took all of the information that we gathered and created a 3D model of the building. And we were able to compare the sizes of the classrooms that are in the building now with the sizes of spaces that the MSBA recommends for a middle school. And as you can see, all of the spaces that are in red here are all undersized. So that's really the majority of the spaces in the building, with the exception really being the modulars that are pretty much on size with what the MSBA would recommend. And this is true at the main level, as well as the intermediate level and the lower levels.
So what would it take to bring the building up to code? So this will be one of the options as part of the analysis, in addition to the ad reno and new construction options that Troy mentioned. The downside with the code upgrade is that it would not address any of those educational deficiencies that we've noticed in the existing building. So all of those classrooms that are represented as undersized, a simple code upgrade option would not address that. It would, however, address the accessibility issues, the cracking issues, the railing issues, and you'll notice here that certain upgrades are triggered as a result of exceeding a percentage of the assessed value. So something as simple as just a roof replacement would actually trigger the need for full accessibility upgrades and full fire protection upgrades. Educational visioning. So the past month, we've held some really exciting visioning sessions with stakeholders in the community, and this included students, teachers, staff, community partners. We've come together every Tuesday night over the past month, and the purpose has really been for us to learn about your current practices and the proposed practices for a future school vision. And ultimately, just to generate some conversation about what is the collective vision or even the individual visions of a student, of a teacher, for a building project. And the outcomes included a few goals that really can be defined by empowering every learner through collaboration and adaptability, creating a safe and long-lasting building, honoring your community, fostering professional collaboration and growth. And a lot of the conversation did also consider cost of a project, what would be most appropriate for the students at that developmental age, And these are things that we will continue to analyze as we develop the options. So we don't have a cost associated with each option yet. That's information that we will have in future community forums to share. The grade level configuration is also a consideration for all of the options that will be studied. So the MSBA and the district worked to establish 3 grade configurations to be analyzed. The first would be a 5-6 grade enrollment, so replicating what is the current enrollment of the Parker School for 930 students. So a little bit larger to accommodate growth in the Parker School. The second enrollment option would be for grades 4 to 6 at 1,390 students. And then the last option we'll be studying is for grades 5 to 8 for 1,885 students. Additionally, we will be looking at projects that could occur on the Graniteville ball field site, as well as the rear fields of the McCarthy site. Although some of our early analysis has also shown that the McCarthy site is likely undersized to carry a building of any of these sizes. So a recap of where those enrollment options came from. You might recall that, just as Dr. Lang mentioned, there was an extensive master plan and facilities study completed in 2016. It was then updated in 2021. And that study confirmed that all of the elementary schools are overcrowded, as well as the Parker Middle School. This is a graphic from that study, and we've continued to use that for consistency in this presentation. So you might recall these buckets that are overflowing, the red representing that overcrowded per school. The master plan included 16 options to be studied. Out of all of those, when you eliminate the options that included the high school, for example, with the switch of statement of interest to the Parker School, that is where those 3 enrollment options were funneled down to. And they make a lot of sense. So the first enrollment option, replicating grades 5 to 6, that has been a successful transition for the town so far. So being able to split that 5 to 8 enrollment into the 2 separate schools. That option would resolve overcrowding at Parker Middle School, but as you can see by these overflowing red buckets, it still would not resolve overcrowding district-wide. The second option, a grade 4 to 6 configuration, would take grade 4 from all of the elementary schools and proposes moving that to a Parker School project for grades 4 to 6. It would leave the maintain McCarthy as the middle school for grades 7 and 8 and would resolve overcrowding district-wide. So you can see everything is green. And then a 5 to 8 option would propose taking 7th and 8th grade out of the McCarthy School, combining it with this Parker project for a new 5 to 8 middle school. As a result, the McCarthy Middle School would become a 5th elementary school for the district, and that too would resolve overcrowding district-wide. The downside would be that the 5 to 8 facility would end up larger in terms of its enrollment than your high school. So a pretty substantial population at a singular building. And I'll just add to that, all of these analyses are really just looking at that population number, not considering cost.
So here's another question for y'all. What characteristics do you imagine learning environments of today may have? What characteristics for a 21st century middle school has that your current middle school does not?
A lot of room flexibility, spaces that can be used for multiple purposes,
some modular components to make room sizes shift and configurations shift.
Yeah.
Collaborative learning.
Yes. Anybody else?
Energy efficiency.
Collaborative learning.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Lane.
Energy efficiency, the one I had said previously was that the spaces are made to be more flexible with modular components that can allow rooms to be used for multiple purposes.
Anybody else? Okay. The answer is yes. And many more components, what we call characteristics or design patterns, things that make up the modern middle school, modern learning environment, whether that's natural daylighting, filtered daylighting, proper acoustics, the HVAC system that is not antiquated, that works, collaborative learning environments, flexible learning, the list goes on and on. And so what we're going to do, we have a series of slides that Julie and Tori are going to go through. Some of these are related to indoor-outdoor connections, STEAM-based learning environments, integrated classroom technology, social-emotional spaces, as well as academic commons and integration of the arts. They're going to go through a little bit of what a modern middle school has, and we could show you 100 slides plus, but we're going to just keep it under, I think, 15 or so. And then after that, we're going to get everybody out of their seats. We're going to turn the lights on, and we're going to use these interactive maps. We have a mapping exercise, the existing Parker site and the 4 sites, if you include Harrington Elementary, with McCarthy, the high school, and Parker Middle School, and get everybody chatting and talking about the existing conditions. And we have one more exercise after that, but I'm going to turn it over to Julie and Tori.
We really just wanted to provoke some inspiration with some of these completed project photos.
So here we have Kennedy Middle School that really embodies that concept of natural light. You can see these high up windows here and this super open space that creates this feeling of connectedness between all of the floors and grade levels of the school. Here we have a typical classroom space where you can see it's much more flexible furniture than you might be used to seeing, as well as several different learning locations. So students with different learning modalities can have different experiences within the same classroom. Here you can see some organic shapes for a little bit more inspiration, as well as soft, flexible seating. And there's also a lot of transparency here from the interior of the building to the exterior of the building, as well as internal transparency, so you can see from this space into the corridor, even into the space beyond. Taking that concept into the classrooms here, we have this small group space, which again allows students with different ways of learning to learn differently. But this space is connected between 2 different classrooms, and there is that transparency. So within the classroom, you can see into this small group space and vice versa.
Here we have an enhanced enrichment learning center with flexible furniture. There's acoustic treatments so that everyone can adequately hear, and it makes for a really pleasant reading space. We also have an art classroom that's zoned so that students can work on different mediums in different zones, including just using the prevalence of the windows as light boxes. Outdoor spaces are something that we are always including now in today's learning environments. This really gives students a chance for hands-on, real-world experiences with local ecology and wellness. And finally, we have a project in Fall River that was really honoring that mill history of Fall River. So the project actually used reclaimed wood from a textile mill nearby, and then you can also see just the representation through the timber structure. And then the moment we've been waiting for, which is our interactive mapping activity. So what we're looking to do here is we do have these large-scale vinyl maps, as Troy mentioned, and we're just really here, we call these community forums, but a major purpose is also listening. So it's a listening session for us, and we want to get direct feedback, and just there's no better research and direct analysis that we can get than from you guys directly. So the point of this would be to pose some questions, really just allow yourselves to write something that comes to mind with the space. Maybe it's something that you do at the school sites. If it's you're going to lacrosse practices here, you're walking the wetland paths to the high school. This is just information that will be helpful for us as we start to plan out some of these conceptual options. So I think we would invite everyone to come up. And we have some sticky notes and pens on the tables. And we'll also have Ashley, our landscape architect, who will have some additional questions as well.
So we see a handful of notes here. If you have any last minute thoughts, we'll be here for a little while. In a few minutes, we're going to have one last question, and also we'll give you 10 minutes to put your answer down on a sticky note and place the sticky note on one of these three sheets of paper on the wall over to my left. And the question is, it's a very broad question. The question is, what does success look like to you for this project? What does success look like for you for this project? It's a broad question. It could be 100 things, but pick one thing, one word, one phrase, one item, put it on the sticky note, and then place the sticky note on the sheet of paper. Okay, two things. First is we just want to make sure everybody is informed. The next community forum will be on November 20th. Same place, same time. And then the community forum number 3 will occur here as well on December 17th. So I know Dr. Lang has provided the information and will continue to do so. It's also on the website. The last thing I just want to do, it's not really great for the camera, but I'm going to just read off a few of the successes. We have town support, accessibility for all, STEAM, students being involved, happy when complete, inclusive and supporting learning environment, ubiquitous technology, we have a swimming pool. Modern state-of-the-art facility, natural daylight, and support from the community, 100% sustainability, happy students, parents, and and the community, administration and community. So, thank you everyone for, does anybody want to speak on any of those? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, and hopefully you'll go back and talk more about the project, about the opportunities, about some of the things we spoke about tonight, and come back on the 20th and the 17th of December and ask your friends neighbors, everybody to join in. We want as much input in this process as possible, and we can only do that with word of mouth and getting out to social media as well as some of the newsletters. So thank you all very much for coming.
Any questions or anybody have any questions? Yeah.
Any questions? Yes.
I would wait for it like this night. We made that mistake like.
I am curious if the next two forums will be a repeat of this one, or will they advance the conversation around additional topics?
Great question. As we move through the next phases, we will continue to dive deeper into the process, deeper into various options and the educational program, ad reno options, new construction options. We'll report on some of the findings of the existing conditions that the investigations, on-site investigations that are occurring and that will occur over the next few months. So we will build on the discussion today and continue that until the submission in January for the first phase. And that will also continue to build as we move through the spring of next year.
So there's a benefit for some of the folks here tonight returning for the next one.
100%.
After that, in addition to inviting us to our friends.
100%. Thank you. Yes.
Sure.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, thoughts?
For the architects, have you guys worked with MSBA before? And is there like a historical reimbursement rate you guys have achieved in those projects?
We have been working with the MSBA for since inception, since 2004 when they started. We actually we worked with the SBA, which was the School Building Assistance before that, the early 2000s. So we've been working with them many years. As far as the reimbursement rate, that varies by project and by district, and so it's between 30 and 80% is the reimbursement rate, and it varies. There's no straight answer to your question regarding reimbursement.
It was more of like, you're familiar with, what's in reimbursements, and so taking that into account when you're designing it.
Yeah, and that will be a continuous conversation about the design process, what is included in the design, both site and building, and how we work with the district, we work with Leftfield and the MSBA with their spreadsheet and identified eligible, ineligible costs as well as caps, their cost caps. So it's a challenging question to answer. It's a lengthy answer, but it's something that we have worked collectively. We worked together doing over the many years and on many projects. So yeah, we're very familiar, and it evolves over time. That process for eligible and ineligible costs has evolved as the MSBA has tried to make sure that there's equitable disbursement of funds between districts and the type of project that is being presented there. Yeah, sure.
This is not an architect selection question, but since you've been involved in a lot of schools from the very early days, or since the turn of the millennia, so to speak, since the turn of the millennia, you've been involved in many school building projects, and each one has been designed to 50, 60 years lifetime, so to speak. Can you give a sense of retrospective? What are some things that you might have missed that in today, if you were reflecting back and said, oh, I wish we had designed this back in 2004 for a community of people? What would be some learnings that you sort of missed on, or key questions, if any, that we should be thinking about?
That's a loaded question. I'm just kidding. So, well, it's an evolution, and I mean the straight answer is that we're always learning as designers. We're always learning as
as architects, and whether that is, well, here's a great example, is 20 years ago, we had community forums, but they were completely different, with the interactive maps, with the interaction of the us and the participants, with the technology, with some of the questions we asked. That wasn't, some of those weren't asked 20 years ago. It was a different method. Every district is different. We take and build on some of the experiences that we have in middle school design, other high school, elementary school design, and always improve. And we're always trying to listen to the client to make sure, and the community, to make sure that their project is the best project for them. It's not what we did in the other project. It's not what we did, with the other district. It's going to be your project. And so communication and collaboration is the biggest key. There are certainly things that we have built on, whether it's technology and the changing of technology, the HVAC systems, and lessons learned based on HVAC systems, and components related to that, and how technology has changed, sustainability has changed, the evolution of geothermal, PVs, et cetera, something that we were just talking about. And so it's a constant communication and making sure that we design and collectively design the best building that we can that's appropriate for the town of Chelmsford.
Would acquiring and rezoning a small private lot be an option to increase usable building space for the project? More specifically, the lot across from the high school fields.
Let me answer like in broad terms, and then we can talk offline if you want, like even more, because I'm not exactly sure which property you're talking about. So typically site acquisition, so if we were to acquire something like that, is not reimbursable. That's a cost that the MSBA would not participate in under general terms. So typically, when we're looking at the different options for the scenarios, whether it's the 2 grade level, 3 grade level, or 4 grade level school, we'd like to be able to build it on already town acquired property and owned property, because we know at that point, the MSBA will participate in the cost. So, if we were to go try to find another site to build on, something along those lines, and we had to actually go out and purchase it, obviously there's time involved in doing that, and the more you delay a project, the more costly the project becomes, but also the MSBA won't participate in the site acquisition. So it's highly unlikely.
I know we're thinking about what's going on now in terms when we create the design and so on, and what our community needs now. But I'm thinking a lot that 4 or 5 years from now, when we're actually in this building, that the way learning is done, the way knowledge is acquired at this level of education is going to change a lot. And even further during the years that the building is in existence. So what do you do in this planning and in this design development to take the future into consideration so that, it's great for the community for the coming many years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And there are a few things just generally that occur and that are occurring now, and that's the educational visioning sessions, talking about collaboration and talking about communication with the district leadership, with these faculty, staff, parents, the kids are part of the visioning sessions. And so that's occurring, and the 4 sessions that we've had that Julia was speaking to earlier is very enlightening with some of the things with teaching and learning and even technology that we talked about, and how that's changed, and how not even just 4 or 5 years from now, but 10 to 20 years,
in making sure that classrooms are flexible, making sure that there's less built-ins, as some examples, less built-ins within the classroom and made part of flexible furniture. Technology is evolving at more of a rapid rate than we've ever seen before. So thinking about that, and we'll get more into technology discussions as we move through the process. But yes, those conversations are occurring to make sure that, that you're set up for success for the flexibility and the changing environment that teaching and learning will inevitably happen in the next 10 years, 15 years with a project. And you're right, we're 5 years out before the building even opens, so it needs to be 10, 15, 20 years at least as part of that conversation. Any other questions? Again, thank you all very much, and we'll see you on the 17th. Oh, sorry. We'll see you first on the 20th of November, and then we'll see you on the 17th of December. Thank you all. Have a great night.
I'll stop with everything.